Welcome back to another story on Infidelity Tales Lab. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Now, let's dive into today's story. I should have known something was wrong the moment Lisa's hands started trembling against Monica's belly. But then again, I should have noticed a lot of things about my wife over the past 8 months that I'd been too blind, too trusting, too fucking stupid to see. Let me back up. My name is Alex Rodriguez. And until 3 weeks ago, I thought I had the perfect life. 15 years married to Lisa, a brilliant obstetrician who saved lives for a living and came home every night with stories that made me feel proud to be her husband. We had our dream house in Westchester, 2 cars in the driveway, and enough money in the bank to sleep soundly. No kids yet. Lisa always said her career came first, and I respected that. I love that about her, actually. Her ambition, her dedication, the way she could make life-or-death decisions without breaking a sweat. I run a successful construction business that my father started in the 80s. Rodriguez and Sons Construction. Even though I'm an only child, Dad always believed in thinking big. We specialize in high-end residential projects, the kind where wealthy clients trust you with million-dollar renovations and don't blink at the invoices. I learned early that in business, reputation is everything, and betrayal is unforgivable. Dad drilled that into me from the time I could hold a hammer. Alex, he'd say, forgive a man's mistakes, but never forgive his lies. Lies are at everything they touch. Monica, my younger sister, had been the family's golden child until she married David 2 years ago. David's a decent enough guy, works in tech, makes good money, treats Monica well enough. They've been trying for a baby since their honeymoon, and when Monica finally announced her pregnancy last December, the whole family celebrated like we'd won the lottery. Mom started knitting baby blankets immediately. Dad began planning the nursery renovation. Lisa threw herself into being the doting sister-in-law, offering medical advice and pregnancy tips at every family gathering. Looking back now, I realize how convenient it was that Monica's pregnancy coincided perfectly with Lisa working longer hours at the hospital. High-risk season, she'd explain, coming home at midnight with exhaustion etched into her face. You know how it is in obstetrics? Babies don't follow schedules. I'd kiss her forehead, heat up her dinner, and feel grateful for having such a dedicated wife. The baby shower was Monica's idea, though Lisa insisted on planning it. I know exactly what new mothers need, she'd said, diving into Pinterest boards and vendor catalogs with the enthusiasm she usually reserved for medical journals. The guest list grew from 20 to 50 people. The venue moved from our house to the country club. Lisa spared no expense, and I didn't question it because making Monica happy made Lisa happy, and Lisa's happiness was all that mattered to me. Saturday afternoon, the country club's garden pavilion buzzed with conversation and laughter. Monica glowed in a flowing blue dress that accentuated her round belly, accepting gifts and compliments with the grace of a practiced performer. I stood near the refreshment table, making small talk with relatives and friends, nursing a beer and checking my phone occasionally for work emails. David mingled nearby, looking as overwhelmed as most expectant fathers do at these events. Lisa moved through the crowd like she owned it, her doctor's confidence making her the unofficial expert on all things pregnancy-related. She wore an elegant black dress that hugged her curves in all the right places, her dark hair pulled back in a way that showed off the diamond earrings I'd given her for our anniversary. Several guests commented on how lucky Monica was to have a doctor in the family. Lisa smiled and deflected the praise gracefully, but I could see how much she enjoyed being the center of attention. The baby's been so active today, Monica announced to the gathered crowd around 4 o'clock, her hands resting on her belly. Want to feel? Lisa, come here. You'll know if this is normal. Lisa set down her champagne glass and approached with that professional smile she wore when discussing medical matters. The crowd quieted, leaning in with the fascination people always show for pregnancy mysteries. Monica took Lisa's hands and placed them on her belly, just below the ribs where the baby supposedly liked to kick. I watched my wife's face change in real time. The professional smile faltered first, replaced by confusion, then concern, then something that looked like horror. Her hands moved across Monica's belly with increasing urgency, pressing and probing in ways that made Monica step back uncomfortably. "Lisa." Monica's voice carried a note of worry. "What's wrong?" Lisa's face had gone white. She looked around the crowd, then grabbed my arm with fingers that felt like ice. "We need to leave. Now." "What? What?" The question came out louder than I intended, drawing stares from the other guests. "Trust me." Lisa's voice was barely above a whisper, but there was something in her tone I'd never heard before. Pure panic. "We need to go. Right now." She dragged me toward the parking lot, her heels clicking rapidly on the stone pathway. Behind us, confused murmurs rose from the crowd. I caught David's bewildered expression and Monica's face, which had shifted from concern to something that looked almost like fear. "We attended my sister's baby shower," she said. "The baby's moving, feel it." My wife, an obstetrician, placed her hand on her belly. The next moment, she dragged me outside. "Call an ambulance. Now." "What? What?" I demanded, trying to keep up with her frantic pace. "Didn't you notice when you touched her belly?" She continued with a trembling voice. "That was—" She stopped walking and turned to face me, her eyes wide with something between terror and guilt. The words that came next hit me like a physical blow. "That wasn't a baby, Alex. There's no baby. Your sister is wearing a fake pregnancy belly, and I know why because I've been helping her hide the truth for months." I collapsed against a nearest car, my legs suddenly unable to support my weight. The world spun around me as Lisa continued talking, her voice growing stronger as if confessing was lifting a weight from her shoulders. "Monica lost the baby in March. Miscarried at 14 weeks. She begged me not to tell anyone because she couldn't bear disappointing the family. So I helped her fake it. I got her the prosthetic belly, taught her how to wear it, how to make it look real. We thought we could buy time. Maybe she'd get pregnant again quickly and no one would know the difference." My mind struggled to process what I was hearing. "You helped her lie to everyone? To me? To Mom and Dad? To David?" "David knows," Lisa said quietly. "He's been part of it from the beginning. They both begged me to help them keep up the charade until they could figure out what to do. So let me get this straight." My voice was getting louder, anger beginning to replace shock. "My sister, her husband, and my wife have been lying to my face for months about a pregnancy that doesn't exist." Lisa nodded, tears starting to roll down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry, Alex. I wanted to tell you, but I promised Monica." "Promised Monica what? That you make me look like an idiot? That you'd let me get excited about becoming an uncle to a baby that doesn't exist?" I stood up, the full implications beginning to hit me. "Jesus Christ, Lisa, do you have any idea what this means? Mom's been knitting baby clothes. Dad's been building a crib. I've been putting money aside for college funds." But even as I said it, I knew there was something else. Something in Lisa's expression told me the fake pregnancy was just the beginning. "Alex," she said softly, "there's more." That's when I really should have walked away. Should have gotten in my car, driven home, and dealt with this revelation like a rational adult. Instead, I stood there in that country club parking lot and let my wife destroy the rest of my life with a single sentence. "I've been having an affair with David for the past year. The reason Monica lost the baby is because she found out about us, and the stress caused the miscarriage. We've been faking the pregnancy to hide the affair and to give David and me time to figure out how to leave our marriages without destroying both families at once." The sound that came out of my mouth wasn't quite human. Somewhere between a growl and a sob. It carried 15 years of love and trust crashing down into nothing. I felt my hands clench into fists, felt a rage building inside me that I'd never experienced before. This wasn't just betrayal. This was calculated, premeditated destruction of everything I cared about. "How long?" The words came out as a whisper. 13 months, Lisa said, not looking at me. "It started at Monica and David's anniversary party last year. We were both drunk, and one thing led to another. It was supposed to be a one-time mistake, but then you decided to destroy 2 marriages instead of being honest." I finished for her. Lisa flinched. "It wasn't like that. We fell in love, Alex. I didn't plan it, and neither did he. We tried to stay away from each other, but we couldn't. And when Monica found out and lost the baby because of it, we knew we had to be more careful. The fake pregnancy bought us time to figure out how to handle this without hurting everyone we care about. I stare at my wife, ex-wife, because she'd stopped being my wife the moment she touched another man, and felt something cold and final settle in my chest. This wasn't hurt or sadness or even anger anymore. This was something much more dangerous. Without hurting everyone you care about, I repeated slowly. So you decided to hurt me instead. Alex, please. No. I held up my hand. You're done talking. You're done lying. You're done pretending you give a shit about anyone but yourself. I turned and walked toward my truck, leaving Lisa standing in the parking lot. Behind me, I could hear her calling my name, but the sound seemed to come from very far away. My mind was already moving past the shock and hurt, already beginning to plan. Lisa had taught me something important in that parking lot. She taught me that the people you trust most are capable of the deepest betrayal. She taught me that love means nothing when weighed against selfishness. And most importantly, she taught me that some people only understand consequences, not forgiveness. My father's voice echoed in my head as I drove home. Forgive a man's mistakes, but never forgive his lies. I wouldn't be forgiving anyone. The drive home passed in a blur of rage and calculation. By the time I pulled into our driveway, I'd made several important decisions. First, I wasn't going to confront Lisa emotionally. Emotional confrontations were what she expected, what she'd probably prepared for. Second, I wasn't going to do anything rash that she could use against me in divorce proceedings. And third, I was going to make sure that everyone involved in this elaborate deception paid a price they'd never forget. Our house felt different when I walked inside. The family photos lining the hallway looked like evidence of a crime now. Lisa and me at our wedding, laughing at some joke I couldn't remember. Lisa at the hospital charity gala, elegant and professional. Monica's engagement photos, with David's arm around her waist, and both of them smiling like they had the world figured out. All of it was lies. I went to my office and pulled out a yellow legal pad. If 15 years of running a construction business had taught me anything, it was that complex problems required systematic solutions. At the top of the page, I wrote 3 names: Lisa Rodriguez, David Chun, Monica Rodriguez-Chin. Under each name, I began listing everything I knew about their lives, their routines, their vulnerabilities. Lisa arrived home an hour later, her key turning in the lock with the same soft click it had made thousands of times before. I heard her heels on the hardwood floor, heard her pause in the kitchen, probably looking for me. When she found me in my office, she was carrying 2 cups of coffee, a peace offering that was about 8 months too late. Alex, she said softly, setting 1 cup on my desk. Can we talk? Sure, I said without looking up from my notes. But you should know that everything you say from this point forward will be used against you in divorce proceedings. She sat down in the chair across from my desk, the same chair where she used to review medical journals while I worked on construction estimates. You have every right to be angry. I'm not angry, I interrupted, finally looking at her. Angry is what you get when someone cuts you off in traffic or forgets to pick up milk. This is something else entirely. Lisa's makeup was smudged from crying, but her eyes were alert and calculating. She was in damage control mode now, trying to figure out how to minimize the destruction. What do you want me to say, Alex? That I'm sorry? That I didn't mean for it to happen? Because I'm sorry, and I didn't plan this. What I want you to say is nothing. What I want you to do is pack a bag and stay somewhere else tonight. Tomorrow morning, you're going to call Monica and David and tell them that the 3 of you are going to come clean to everyone about this elaborate lie you've been living. Alex, please. If this comes out, it'll destroy Monica. She's already been through so much with a miscarriage. Monica made her choice when she decided to fake a pregnancy instead of dealing with her grief like an adult. You made your choice when you decided to fuck her husband instead of working on your marriage. David made his choice when he decided to betray his wife and help her lie to her entire family. None of you get to avoid consequences because the truth is inconvenient. Lisa leaned forward, using the voice she probably used with difficult patience. I know you're hurt, and you have every right to be. But think about what you're asking. If we tell everyone the truth all at once, it'll devastate your parents. It'll humiliate Monica and David. It'll destroy both families. Both families are already destroyed, I said calmly. The only difference is that right now, I'm the only one who knows it. She tried a different approach. What if we did this gradually? What if Monica lost the baby in a few weeks, and then David and I could separate quietly? People get divorced all the time. It doesn't have to be a scandal. I set down my pen and looked at her directly. You want to know what I think, Lisa? I think you're scared. I think you're realizing that your little love affair is about to cost you everything you've worked for. Your reputation, your medical practice, your financial security. I think you're hoping I'll be reasonable and help you manage this crisis like I've managed every other crisis in our marriage. I'm not asking you to. But here's what you don't understand, I continued. I'm not your partner anymore. I'm not your ally. I'm not someone who's going to help you figure out how to minimize the damage from your betrayal. As of today, you and David and Monica are on your own. Lisa's composure finally cracked. Alex, please. I love you. I know you don't believe that right now, but I do. David and I, it's complicated. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You've been fucking my sister's husband for over a year while lying to my face every single day. You helped them fake a pregnancy to cover up an affair that caused a miscarriage. There's nothing complicated about it. Tears started rolling down her cheeks again. If you ever loved me, please don't do this. Please give us a chance to make this right. The plea might have worked on the man I was yesterday. The man who trusted her, who believed in the goodness of people, who thought love conquered all. But that man had died in the country club parking lot. I did love you, I said quietly. More than anything, which is why what you've done is unforgivable. Lisa left that night, taking a single suitcase and her medical bag. She didn't ask where she was going to stay, and I didn't ask. I suspected I already knew. Over the next 3 days, I put my plan into motion. The first step was gathering evidence. Lisa had been careless with her phone bills, and it didn't take much effort to see the patterns. Hundreds of calls and texts to David's number at all hours of the day and night. Credit card statements showed hotel charges and restaurant bills that coincided with days when she'd claimed to be working late. Her laptop, which she'd left behind in her hurry to pack, contained email chains between her, David, and Monica discussing the fake pregnancy charade in detail. The second step was consulting with lawyers. I met with 3 different attorneys before finding Patricia Grimm, a divorce specialist who'd built her reputation on handling high-profile cases involving infidelity and fraud. Patricia was in her 50s, silver-haired, and ruthless in the way that only someone who'd seen too many lies could be. This is actually quite straightforward, Patricia said after reviewing my evidence. Your wife committed adultery, which affects property division in New York. The fake pregnancy adds an element of fraud and conspiracy that works in your favor. We can file for divorce on grounds of adultery and seek full enforcement of your prenuptial agreement. The prenup had been Lisa's idea, ironically. As a doctor, she'd wanted to protect her assets in case our marriage failed. It specified that in cases of adultery, the cheating spouse forfeited their claim to marital property and spousal support. At the time, I'd signed it readily because I trusted her completely. Now it was going to be her undoing. What about going after David? I asked. Patricia smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her. New York allows you to sue for alienation of affection. We can go after him for damages related to the destruction of your marriage. Given his financial situation and the evidence you have, we could easily get a judgment in the mid-6 figures. And Monica? More complicated, since she's your sister and wasn't directly involved in the affair. But if we can prove she conspired to defraud you emotionally and financially, which the fake pregnancy evidence supports, we might have options there too. The third step was professional. Lisa worked at St. Mary's Hospital, one of the most prestigious medical facilities in the state. Her affair with David had involved using her medical expertise to help fake a pregnancy, which raised serious ethical questions about her fitness to practice medicine. I made copies of all the relevant evidence and sent them to the New York State Board of Medicine with a formal complaint. I also reached out to David's employer, a tech company that prided itself on ethical leadership and family values. David was a senior developer with access to sensitive systems and client data. Companies like his didn't appreciate employees who demonstrated poor judgment in their personal lives, especially when it involved elaborate deceptions and fraud. By Wednesday, the first consequences began to appear. Lisa called me in tears, saying that she'd been suspended from the hospital pending an investigation into ethical violations. David was being moved to a different department at work, while HR looked into character concerns raised by an anonymous tip. "Alex, please," Lisa begged over the phone. "I know you're angry, but this is destroying our careers. Can't we work something out? You destroyed your own careers when you decided to lie and cheat instead of being honest," I replied. "I'm just making sure everyone knows the truth about who you really are. What do you want from us? Money? An apology? We'll do anything. What I want is for you to face the consequences of your actions without trying to manipulate your way out of them. What I want is for you to understand that betrayal has a price." "Alex, you're scaring me. This isn't like you." She was right. The old Alex would have been devastated, but ultimately forgiving. The old Alex would have tried to work things out, gone to counseling, found a way to rebuild trust. But the old Alex had been a fool who believed in the goodness of people who didn't deserve his faith. "You're right," I said. The Alex he knew was weak. He was naive. He let people take advantage of his trust because he thought love meant never holding people accountable for their choices. That Alex is gone. The fourth step was social. I started making phone calls to family and friends, not to gossip or seek sympathy, but to control the narrative. I told them that Lisa and I were divorcing due to irreconcilable differences, and that there might be some difficult revelations coming out soon. I positioned myself as the reasonable party who was trying to handle a difficult situation with dignity. When my parents called asking for details, I was honest but measured. Lisa has been having an affair, and there are some other complications involving Monica that I can't discuss yet. I know this is shocking, and I know it's going to be hard on everyone, but I need you to trust me to handle this the right way." My mother cried. My father was silent for a long moment before saying, "What do you need from us, son?" "Just support. And when the whole story comes out, I need you to remember that I tried to do this quietly." By Friday, the pressure was clearly getting to them. Monica called me for the first time since the baby shower, her voice shaky and desperate. "Alex, we need to talk. All of us. This has gone too far." "I agree," I said. "Let's meet at the house tomorrow morning. You, David, Lisa, and me. We'll get everything out in the open." "Thank you," Monica said, relief evident in her voice. "Thank you for being reasonable about this." I hung up without correcting her assumption. There was nothing reasonable about what I was planning. Saturday morning, they arrived together, my wife, my sister, and my brother-in-law, looking like defendants arriving at a criminal trial. Monica was wearing loose clothing that couldn't completely hide the absence of her fake belly. Lisa looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, suggesting she hadn't slept much. David kept checking his phone, probably dealing with fallout from work. I served coffee and sat across from him at our dining room table, the same table where we'd shared countless family dinners and holiday celebrations. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Before we start," I said, "I want you all to understand something. This isn't a negotiation. This isn't a family meeting where we're going to work through our problems and find a solution that makes everyone happy. This is me telling you what's going to happen next." Lisa opened her mouth to speak, but I held up my hand. "You've all had months to figure out how to handle this situation. You chose lies, deception, and betrayal. You chose to protect yourselves at my expense. Now I'm choosing how to protect myself at your expense." I slid 3 manila envelopes across the table. "David, your envelope contains copies of all the evidence I've given to your HR department, along with documentation that I'll be filing an alienation of affection lawsuit against you on Monday. You're going to lose your job, and then you're going to lose a significant portion of your assets in civil court." David's face went white as he opened the envelope. "Alex, man, I know you're pissed, but..." "Monica," I continued without acknowledging him, "your envelope contains copies of everything I'm sending to Mom and Dad tomorrow, including Lisa's medical records showing that you lost your baby in March and have been faking a pregnancy ever since. It also includes a letter I'm sending to your church, your neighbors, and everyone who attended your baby shower, explaining why they won't be meeting your baby after all." Monica gasped, her hands shaking as she fumbled with the envelope. "Alex, you can't. The shame will kill Mom and Dad. Please, I'm begging you. Lisa, I said, sliding the final envelope to my wife, yours contains copies of everything I've sent to the medical board, along with the divorce papers Patricia filed yesterday. You're going to lose your medical license, your claim to any marital property, and any hope of spousal support. You're also going to discover that your professional malpractice insurance doesn't cover ethical violations related to fraud. Lisa's hands were trembling as she opened her envelope. Alex, this will destroy me. Everything I've worked for. Everything you worked for. I stood up, my voice rising for the first time. You think your career is more important than our marriage? You think your reputation matters more than the trust you destroyed? You think you deserve to keep the benefits of being a respected doctor while acting like a common liar and cheat? That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. All three of you are sitting here worried about how this affects you. Your careers, your reputations, your comfort. None of you have apologized for what you did to me. None of you have acknowledged that your choices were wrong. You're just upset that there are consequences. David finally found his voice. Alex, I get that you're angry, but this is nuclear. You're talking about destroying all our lives over something that... Look, people make mistakes. People fall in love. It happens. I turned to look at him directly for the first time since he'd arrived. David was a smaller man than me, soft in the way that office workers often were, with the kind of face that suggested he'd never been in a real fight in his life. Looking at him now, I felt nothing but contempt. People make mistakes, I repeated slowly. Is that what you call a year-long affair? Is that what you call helping fake a pregnancy? Is that what you call lying to your wife's family for 8 months? Mistakes. You meant that you thought you could fuck my wife and lie to my face and never pay a price for it. You thought you were smarter than everyone else, that you could manage this situation without anyone getting hurt. But the only person who got hurt was me. And now you're surprised that I'm not grateful for your consideration. Monica tried a different approach. Alex, I know what we did was wrong, but please think about the family. Think about Mom and Dad. This will break their hearts. Mom and Dad's hearts are going to be broken no matter what, I said. The only question is whether they're broken by the truth or by more lies. I've decided they deserve the truth. But if you tell them gradually, Lisa started. No. My voice was flat, final. I'm done with gradual. I'm done with managing everyone else's feelings. I'm done with protecting people who didn't protect me. I walked to the window and looked out at the yard Lisa and I had landscaped together 3 years ago. We'd planted roses because they were her favorite flower. We'd installed a deck because I liked to grill. We talked about adding a swing set someday when we had children. All of it seemed like someone else's life now. Here's what's going to happen, I said without turning around. Monica, you're going to call Mom and Dad today and tell them the truth about the pregnancy. You're going to tell them about the affair. You're going to explain why you thought lying to them was better than dealing with your grief honestly. Alex, David, you're going to call your parents and explain why your marriage is ending and why you're about to lose your job. You're going to take responsibility for your choices instead of making Monica do all the emotional labor. Please, Lisa, you're going to move out of this house permanently. You're going to find somewhere else to live while we go through divorce proceedings. You're going to cooperate fully with the property division, and you're not going to contest the prenup you insisted on. I turned back to face them. All three looked like they'd been physically struck. And all of you are going to understand that this isn't cruelty. This isn't revenge. This is accountability. This is what happens when you bet that someone will love you more than they love themselves. Lisa was crying openly now. Alex, I still love you. Despite everything, I love you. Can't that count for something? The question hit harder than I expected. For a moment, I could see the woman I'd fallen in love with 15 years ago, the brilliant and compassionate doctor who'd captured my heart completely. But that woman was a fiction now, a character she'd played while planning my destruction. Love isn't a feeling, Lisa. Love is a choice. It's choosing someone every day, even when it's difficult. It's being honest when the truth is hard. It's putting your partner's well-being above your own desires. You didn't love me. You loved the idea of having me as a safety net while you explored other options. That's not true. It's completely true. And the proof is that you're sitting here trying to negotiate your way out of consequences instead of accepting responsibility for what you've done. David stood up abruptly. Fine. You want to destroy everyone's life? Go ahead. But this isn't justice, Alex. This is just vindictive revenge from someone who can't handle being rejected. The words hung in the air for a moment. Then I smiled. The first genuine smile I'd felt in a week. Rejected, I repeated. I walked over to David, close enough that he had to look up at me. This isn't about you choosing her over me, David. This is about all of you choosing to lie to me for months while pretending to care about me. This is about you making a fool of me while I worried about your wife's fake pregnancy. This is about Lisa coming home every night and acting like a loving wife while she was planning to leave me for you. I could see David's hands shaking slightly. He was scared, and he should be. So no, this isn't revenge. Revenge would be irrational and emotional. This is justice. This is making sure that people who destroy trust face the consequences of their choices. And the beautiful thing about consequences is that they don't require forgiveness or understanding or mercy. They just require truth. Monica stood up too, positioning herself between David and me. Alex, you're scaring us. This isn't who you are. You're right, I said, stepping back. This isn't who I was, but who I was got betrayed by the people he trusted most. Who I am now understands that some people only learn through consequences. They left together 20 minutes later, their envelopes clutched in their hands like summons to judgment. I watched through the window as they stood in my driveway, arguing in whispers, probably trying to figure out how to minimize the damage I was about to cause. But I was past the point of caring about their damage control. I was past the point of caring about their feelings or their futures or their regrets. They'd made their choices when they'd thought the consequences would fall on someone else. Now, they were going to learn what accountability felt like. The next 3 weeks unfolded like a carefully orchestrated demolition. I'd spent years watching buildings come down in controlled explosions, and I'd learned that destruction, done properly, was a precise art. You identified the load-bearing structures, placed your charges strategically, and then stepped back to watch gravity do the rest. Monday morning, Monica called our parents. I wasn't there, but my mother called me afterward, crying so hard I could barely understand her words. She lost the baby in March, Alex. In March. And she's been pretending all this time. How could she do that to us? How could she let us get so excited, let us plan and hope and dream when there was no baby? I don't know, Mom, I said honestly. I don't understand how any of them thought this was a good idea. And Lisa, Mom continued, her voice breaking. Lisa knew. She helped Monica lie to us. How could she do that? How could she lie to your face every day for months? I let her cry, offering comfort where I could, but I didn't try to defend Lisa or Monica or David. They'd created this pain themselves, and they could live with the consequences. Dad was quieter when he called later that day. Son, he said, I want you to know that your mother and I support whatever decisions you make about this marriage. We love Lisa, but what she did, that's not something a person comes back from. Thanks, Dad. That means everything to me. Your sister wants to talk to you, he continued. She's been calling here, crying, asking us to intercede. We told her that she made this mess and she needs to face it. By Wednesday, the professional consequences were accelerating. Lisa's suspension became a formal investigation when the medical board received my complaint. The evidence was overwhelming. She'd used her medical expertise to help fake a pregnancy, which violated multiple ethical guidelines about practicing medicine outside of her licensed capacity and participating in fraud. David's situation was even worse. His company had a strict ethics policy that covered employee conduct both inside and outside the workplace. When HR saw the evidence of his year-long affair and participation in elaborate deception, they moved quickly to terminate his employment. In the tech industry, reputation mattered almost as much as skill, and David's reputation was now toxic. Patricia called with updates on the legal front. The divorce is proceeding exactly as expected. Their attorney tried to challenge the prenup, but the adultery clause is ironclad. Lisa's going to walk away with essentially nothing. What about the alienation of affection suit? David's attorney wants to settle. They're offering $50,000 to make it go away. No, I said immediately. We're going to trial. I want everyone to see exactly what this cost me. Patricia paused. Alex, I have to ask, Are you sure about this? 50,000 is real money, and trials are expensive and time-consuming. Sometimes the victory isn't worth the cost. This isn't about money, Patricia. This is about making sure that actions have consequences. David needs to understand that destroying someone's marriage isn't a mistake you can write a check to fix. Understood. We'll reject the settlement offer. The social consequences were perhaps the most devastating for Monica. Word spread quickly through our extended family and social circle. The baby shower guests felt humiliated and manipulated. Church members were shocked that Monica would fake a pregnancy and involve them in the deception. Neighbors who'd been watching her belly grow with interest now whispered when she walked by. Mom told me that Monica had basically become a hermit, afraid to leave the house because of the stares and whispers. She keeps saying she just wanted more time. Mom said, time to grieve, time to get pregnant again, time to figure out how to tell us she'd lost the baby. But Alex, 8 months of lying isn't buying time. That's living in a fantasy. The hardest part for me was watching how the revelation affected my parents. Dad had torn down the crib he'd been building in his workshop, throwing the pieces in the trash like they were contaminated. Mom had packed away all the baby clothes and blankets she'd been accumulating, unable to look at them without crying. It's not just the lying, Mom explained when I visited her on Thursday. It's that they made us complicit in it. Every time we talked about the baby, every time we made plans or bought gifts or told our friends about becoming grandparents, we were participating in their lie without knowing it. They used our love against us. That was exactly right, and it crystallized something important for me. This wasn't just about betrayal between spouses or siblings. This was about how their selfishness had contaminated every relationship it touched. Lisa tried one more time to negotiate on Friday, showing up at my office unannounced while I was reviewing blueprints for a new project. She looked terrible, dark circles under her eyes, her hair unwashed, wearing the kind of casual clothes she usually reserved for sick days. Alex, please, she said, sitting down across from my desk without being invited. We need to talk about this rationally. I set down my blueprints and looked at her. There's nothing to talk about, Lisa. The lawyers are handling everything from here. The medical board is going to revoke my license, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. 20 years of training and practice gone. I'll never be able to work as a doctor again. Probably not, I agreed. David lost his job. He's not going to be able to find another one in tech with this on his record. We're both going to have to start over completely. That's the idea. Lisa leaned forward, desperation making her voice stronger. What do you want, Alex? Really, what do you want? If it's an apology, I'm sorry. If it's money, we'll figure out how to pay you. If it's time apart, I'll move across the country. Just tell me what would take for you to call off the dogs. I studied her face for a moment. There was something almost pathetic about the question, as if she still didn't understand what she'd done or why it mattered. What I want, I said slowly, is for you to face the consequences of your choices without trying to manipulate your way out of them. What I want is for you to understand that trust, once broken, can't be repaired with apologies or promises or negotiations. But Alex, what I want, I continued, is for David to understand that destroying someone's marriage for your own pleasure has a price. What I want is for Monica to understand that lying to people who love you isn't just a mistake. It's a betrayal that leaves permanent damage. Lisa was crying again. You're destroying all of us over something that, yes, it was wrong, but people make mistakes. People fall in love with the wrong person. People make bad decisions when they're emotional. Stop calling a mistake, I said, my voice getting harder. A mistake is backing into a parked car. A mistake is forgetting someone's birthday. What you did was a series of deliberate choices made over more than a year. You chose to start an affair. You chose to continue it. You chose to help fake a pregnancy. You chose to lie to my face every single day while planning to leave me for another man. I was going to tell you. When? After David divorced Monica? After you'd figured out how to protect your assets? After you'd found a way to make me look like the bad guy for not understanding your true love? Lisa couldn't answer that because we both knew the truth. She would have kept lying for as long as it served her purposes. The difference between us, I said, standing up to signal that the conversation was over, is that I'm not pretending this is anything other than what it is. I'm not calling it justice or righteousness or doing what's best for everyone. I'm destroying your life because you destroyed mine, and I want you to understand that actions have consequences. This isn't who you are, Alex, Lisa said, standing up too. The man I married was kind and forgiving, and the man you married was naive and trusting and willing to be taken advantage of by people he loved. I interrupted. That man believed that marriage meant partnership and honesty and loyalty. You taught me that I was wrong about all of that. I walked to the door and opened it. The man you married is gone, Lisa. You killed him the moment you decided that your happiness mattered more than his trust. She left without another word, and I knew it would be the last time we'd speak directly. 2 weeks later, the final pieces fell into place. The medical board formally revoked Lisa's license to practice medicine. David's alienation of affection case went to trial, and the jury awarded me $150,000 in damages. Not because they thought that was what my marriage was worth, but because they wanted to send a message about the cost of deliberately destroying families. Monica and David's marriage ended in a quiet divorce that made the local newspaper's public record section. She moved back in with our parents temporarily, while David left town entirely, probably hoping to start over somewhere his reputation hadn't followed him. Lisa found work as a medical consultant for an insurance company, reviewing claims and writing reports for a fraction of what she'd made as a practicing physician. She was living in a studio apartment across town, driving a 10-year-old Honda instead of her BMW, shopping at discount stores instead of the boutiques she'd preferred. I saw her once at the grocery store, 3 months after the divorce was finalized. She looked older, worn down by the weight of consequences she'd never expected to carry. When she noticed me in the cereal aisle, she started to approach, then seemed to think better of it. She turned away and disappeared around the corner, probably hoping to avoid another confrontation. But I wasn't interested in confrontation anymore. The anger that had driven me for months was gone, replaced by something more like satisfaction. Not happiness. I wasn't sure I'd ever be happy in the same way again, but the solid contentment that comes from seeing justice done. 6 months later, I was in a better place than I'd expected. The construction business was thriving, partly because word had gotten around about how I'd handled my difficult situation. Other contractors and clients respected the fact that I'd stood up for myself without breaking any laws or doing anything that could come back to hurt me professionally. My parents had recovered from the initial shock and were treating me with a new kind of respect. Dad started asking for my advice on business decisions he'd always handled alone. Mom included me in family planning conversations she'd previously managed herself. They'd learned that their youngest son was stronger than they'd realized. Monica, and I hadn't spoken since that day in my dining room, but Mom told me she was seeing a therapist and trying to figure out how to rebuild her life. I didn't wish her ill, but I didn't wish her well either. She was dealing with the consequences of her choices, same as everyone else. Patricia called with news that David had declared bankruptcy and moved to another state. His financial situation is pretty dire, she said. Lost his job, lost his divorce settlement, lost the alienation judgment, and apparently his family has cut him off financially. Good, I said. He earned every bit of it. Any regrets about how hard you went after them? I thought about it for a moment. No, they made choices that destroyed my life without caring about the consequences. I made choices that destroyed their lives while caring deeply about the consequences. The difference is that mine were justified. On the 1-year anniversary of the baby shower, I had dinner with my parents. We didn't talk about Monica or Lisa or David. We talked about Dad's retirement plans and Mom's garden and my ideas for expanding the business. Normal family conversation between people who trusted each other. As I was leaving, Dad walked me to my truck. Son, he said, I want you to know that I'm proud of how you handled everything this year. It couldn't have been easy standing up to people you loved when they were trying to take advantage of you. Thanks, Dad. That means a lot. Your mother worries that you've gotten too hard, too unforgiving. She thinks maybe you should consider therapy or counseling or something to help you work through the anger. I looked at my father, this man who taught me about integrity and consequences and never backing down from what was right. I'm not angry anymore, Dad. I'm careful. I'm discriminating about who I trust and why. I'm unwilling to forgive people who aren't sorry for what they've done, only sorry they got caught. Dad nodded slowly. That sounds like wisdom to me. I learned it from you, I said. You always told me to forgive mistakes, but never forgive lies. Lisa and Monica and David weren't making mistakes. They were making choices. And choices have consequences. I drove home to my empty house, which no longer felt empty, but peaceful. I'd learned important lessons over the past year. I'd learned that love without trust was worthless. I'd learned that forgiveness without accountability was enabling. I'd learned that some people only understood consequences, not kindness. Most importantly, I'd learned that standing up for yourself wasn't cruelty, even when it hurt people you'd once cared about. Sometimes the kindest thing you could do for someone was to let them face the full weight of their choices without cushioning the blow. Lisa had taught me that people were capable of profound betrayal while maintaining the pretense of love. Monica had taught me that family loyalty had limits. David had taught me that some men would destroy anything they could get away with destroying. But I taught them something too. I taught them that actions have consequences. I taught them that trust, once broken, couldn't be repaired with excuses or apologies or time. I taught them that some people refuse to be taken advantage of, no matter how much they'd once loved you. The baby shower revelation had destroyed my old life completely, but it had also given me something valuable. The knowledge that I was stronger than I'd ever imagined, and that I deserved better than people who would lie to my face while planning my destruction. I never forgave them. I never took any of them back. And I never regretted any decision I'd made in response to their betrayal. Some people called me harsh. Some people said I'd gone too far. Some people thought I should have been more understanding, more forgiving, more willing to work things out. But none of those people had lived through what I'd lived through. None of them had discovered that their entire life was built on lies told by people they trusted. None of them had to choose between accepting betrayal and fighting back against it. I chose to fight back, and I won. The baby shower had been meant to celebrate new life. Instead, it became the funeral for my old life and the birth of something harder but more honest. I'd learned to be ruthless when necessary, brutal when justified, and unforgiving when betrayal was involved. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was the life I'd earned. And unlike the life I'd lost, this one was built on truth instead of lies. That made all the difference. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen, and I'll see you there.